Hey, hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me. We are still going through the judgments. Do you remember I think it was chapter 20, the end of chapter 20. Here it is. Remember, 20 is where we got the 10 Commandments. It says in verse 21, let me enlarge this. It says in verse 21 that the people stood afar off, but Moses drew near the thick darkness. And this is where Yahovah starts talking with Moses to give information. He says, "Thus you shall say to Israel's seed, you have seen you've seen that I have talked with you from heaven. You shall make." So he's going through some of the statutes. In the very next verse, or next chapter, he says, "These are the judgments which thou shalt set before them." Thou, Moses, shall set before them Israel's seed. But now the thou is going to be Israel's seed until almost further notice. So we are picking up in chapter 23 today with a continuation of these judgments that Yahovah is giving to Israel's seed. Remember, it's the thou. The thou could be looked at as each Ezra man individually, because remember, the Ezra men are the only ones that Yahovah is giving his commandments to. Not the ladies. Remember 19, it said, don't go near a woman. So we see, and we've seen often, that Israel's seed, a.k.a. men of Israel, a.k.a. and worst of all, children of Israel. Now we're really confused. We don't know who they are. The Ezra men. You know, if you don't know what an Ezra man is, if you don't know what the Ger is, you've got to go back and start listening, maybe even to 19. If you listen at 12, Exodus 12, we'll talk about who the Ger is, who the Ezra is. You can't be an Ezra man unless you're a Ger first, who gets circumcised and then partakes in the Passover. That's how you become an Ezra man. That is the second birth. They are Yahovah's son, his firstborn. Remember what he told Pharaoh? "Thus you shall say to Pharaoh, my son, my firstborn, my Bekor, men, is Israel." At Passover, the Ger who gets circumcised and then eats the Passover becomes the Ezra man, the born in the land man. This is what we're talking about, the born in the land man, the Ezra man. Wherever it says Israel's seed, children of Israel, B'nai Israel, we're talking about spiritually born men, multiple generations of spiritually born men. So this thou, because there is no plural form of Ezra, remember, Israel is my son, singular. Could be each man individually or each man as a group. But oftentimes he's going to say y'all when he's talking about all of Israel's seed. So it works both ways. Thou shalt not circulate a false report. Isn't this exactly what we're talking about with the, I forget which commandment it is, maybe the 6th commandment? You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. False witness, false report. This is what happens all the time in the media. ABC, NBC, CBS. And then it gets carried on through. It probably starts with some of the 3-letter agencies is where it originates, and then it continues through the media. Yahovah cares about justice and equity among his people, but I think even equity in the earth. He cares about justice and equity in the earth. But right now we're talking about his people. Remember, it says in Deuteronomy, I think 6 or 8, what great nation is this that has such judgments and statutes that the whole world is going to be impressed by the things that Yahovah has commanded us to live by. It says, do not put your hand with the wicked to be an unrighteous witness. An unrighteous witness. You know what? That goes really along with the very next verse. You shall not follow the crowd to do evil, nor shall you testify in a dispute, so as to turn aside after many to pervert justice. Peer pressure. Following the crowd to do evil. You know, I have to go to the masks. To put it into modern day understandings. The mainstream media will have you believe that everybody's getting the you know what? That everybody's wearing the face coverings. But we do not follow the crowd to do evil. Did Yahovah tell us to do that? Why are we encouraging other people to do it? To justify our own misdeeds, perhaps? You know, I think this is interesting. I put peer pressure often makes us act wrongly. Only by gaining knowledge and understanding will we wisely be able to stay on a righteous path. You know what? Knowledge and understanding in this day and age, you got to seek out things. You got to seek out truth. You got to be a truth seeker. I have a t-shirt that says, truth over tradition. We have learned lies, worthless and unprofitable things. Here's what Glenn McWilliams wrote many years ago. I copied this, but I liked what he had to say. The Torah teaches that we are not to bend our opinions as judges to accommodate the whims of the majority. Popularity is not to be a motive of justice. No, that's what we're at. This is the verse we're on. Thou shalt not follow the multitude to do evil. Well, he says, I point out this passage because the rabbis base their authority. Remember, we're talking about Jewish rabbis. We're starting to find out that some of these Jewish rabbis are Khazarians. That fits in very interesting to this picture. It didn't fit when Glenn wrote this. I point out this passage because the rabbis base their authority to change the teachings of Torah by their rulings on the midrashic interpretation of the scripture. The rabbis claim that whatever the majority of the rabbis agree upon, the rest of Judaism is bound to it. Even though the above verse completely contradicts this understanding, the rabbis base their authority to add and subtract from the scriptures upon the text by stating that it says, follow the majority. Oh my goodness. People have got to learn to think for themselves. Don't follow men. You shall have no other Elohim but me, Yahovah says. Can we add or subtract from Jehovah's word? Don't do it. It's going to get you in trouble. Nor shall you testify in a dispute to turn aside after many to pervert justice. You know, this peer pressure thing, it's used against us often in the news. Oh, well, don't you know that's what we're supposed to do? Oh, when I started following Torah, the people who are following the doctrines and traditions of men hated me. Part of the reason my first woman left me, because I saw something different. It was right after 9/11. Oh my gosh, what's coming out about 9/11 right now? Oh, sheesh. There is on Rumble, Patriot Underground, talking to, who was that man? His most recent, I'm forgetting his name. I forget what his name is. I don't want to look for it right now. He's talking about 9/11. Very interesting stuff. Well, let's go to 3. Thou, again, talking to the Ezra men, not the Ger, not their women, not their servants. Thou shalt not show partiality to a poor man in his dispute. I think this goes right along with the last one about perverting justice. Usually, in the courts that we have these days, it seems like it's the rich guys, those that can afford the best attorney, that are going to win the case. In this case, he's saying don't overcompensate because the guy's poor. Just because he's poor doesn't mean he's going to get special privileges. We've got to be equitable in our judgments. He goes on, if thou meet thy enemy's ox or his donkey going astray, thou shalt surely bring it to, oh, you know what? I had something here. No, I guess I didn't. I've got it. All right. I'm sorry. You shall surely bring it back to him again. If you see the donkey of one who hates you. So here we have our enemy's ox. Here's the guy who hates you, hates thee. Lying under its burden, the donkey fell down. Its burden is so heavy, and he's trapped on the ground. He says, thou would hates, you shall surely bring it back to him. If you see a donkey of one who hates you lying under its burden, it's fallen down, it's under its burden, you would refrain from helping it, you shall surely help him with it. You're going to help the man who hates you for his donkey. 6, you shall not pervert the judgment of thy poor in his dispute. You know, the courts in our land right now, and it's changing. I don't know if you've seen how many vacancies there are in the courts these days. Where are these judges going? I wonder. But nowadays, and actually I wrote this years ago, nowadays the one who pays for the most expensive attorney wins. Isn't that how it's been? Seven, keep yourself far from a false matter. Do not kill the innocent and the righteous, for I will not justify the wicked. The Rasha is who they're talking about. He says, keep them far from a false matter. The Complete Jewish Bible says, keep away from fraud. Keep away from a false matter. It reminded me of a couple different verses when I read this. One is 57, 1 and 2. It says, the righteous perishes. The righteous perishes. Are they killing the righteous? I think they are. And no man takes it to heart. Merciful men are taken away. Well, no one considers that the righteous is taken away from the evil. You know what? Sometimes it's the righteous who are in the land that keep us from going towards Sodom and Gomorrah. Well, no one considers that the righteous is taken away from the evil. He shall enter into peace. They shall rest in their beds, each one walking in his uprightness. Did you hear that? His uprightness, not Yahovah's uprightness or uprightness. He says uprightness, not Yahovah's righteousness, but his uprightness. Here's another one that really goes along with this. Hear the words of Yahovah. You who tremble at his words, your brethren, your Ak, who hates you, who cast you out for my name's sake, said, let Yahovah be glorified, that he may see your joy. But they will be ashamed. They're casting you out, thinking Yahovah be glorified. John said exactly the same thing. I don't go to the New Testament hardly ever. But this is one that I particularly liked. Look what it says. These things I have spoken to you that you should not be made to stumble. They will put you out of the synagogue. Yes, the time is coming that whoever kills you will think he offers Elohim service. They think they're doing something good for Yahovah. But they're not doing it righteously. They're killing, what is it called? The innocent and the righteous. 23:8. And thou shalt not take a bribe, for a bribe blinds the discerning and perverts the words of the righteous. Lots of bribes going on in the world right now, let me tell you. Here is Samuel talking about his sons. Now it came to pass when Samuel was old that he made his sons judges over Israel. The name of the firstborn was Joel, and the name of the second one was Abiah. They were judges in Beersheba. But his sons did not walk in his ways. They turned aside after dishonest gain, took bribes, and perverted justice. Yes. They were destroyed because of it. Also, you shall not oppress a stranger, for you know the heart of a stranger, because you were strangers in the land of Egypt. You know, the average person reads this and they see this word stranger. What do they think? Hi, Sam. What do they think? How does it flow together with the rest of the verse? They don't know. They're thinking a stranger, somebody they don't know. But that's not what a stranger is. The stranger is the man who used to be. No, the stranger is the one who dwells with us here. And a stranger, a ger, thou shalt not oppress, because you know the thoughts, the heart. He says the heart of a stranger. It's the thoughts, the nefesh of the stranger, because ye were strangers, garim, in the land of Egypt. Nobody, no man, can become an Ezra man without first being a stranger. Remember, when the Benakar or the Toshav leave the government of their birth, and join themselves to Israel as being under Yahovah's rule. They're not Ezra yet, but they become a ger when they leave the kingdom of their birth and join themselves to Israel. That's a ger. But at Passover, the ger can circumcise himself and all the men of his household, and then partake in the Passover and become as one born in the land. It says become an Ezra. Gets translated as one born in the land. But we miss it because we don't see it. Anybody who is an Ezra was at one point a Gerim in the land of Egypt. I was a Gerim in the land of Egypt. Until I took the Passover. I was already circumcised. But when I finally took the Passover, slaughtered my Passover lamb, and ate my Passover lamb, I came into covenant with Yahovah. And became his Ezra man. That's who he's talking to. That's who these commandments are for. That is the thou. But isn't it interesting? They translated this nefesh as heart. It's the word here. It says, for ye know the thoughts, a nefesh. That's the thoughts and emotions. You know the heart. He says, thou shalt love Yahovah with all your heart, your love, with all your soul. That's nefesh, thoughts and emotions. And with all your, what is the word? It goes along with actions done in accordance with Yahovah's ways. All your me'od, that's what it is. All your me'od. It's not me'od. It's not righteous actions if they're not done in according with Yahovah's statutes and judgments and ordinances. That's how we're supposed to love him. But this doesn't say love. This says thoughts and emotions. Who knows anyone's heart? We can see their actions. Yahovah says this. The heart is deceitful above all things. Desperately wicked. Who can know it? I, Yahovah, search the heart. It's Yahovah who searches the heart. I test the mind, even to give every man according to his ways, according to the fruit of his doings. Yahovah knows the heart. Again, if Yahovah is telling us, his sons, not to oppress the ger, then he's not talking to the ger. He's talking to the Ezra man. Just one more proof of who we're talking to. Not talking to the ladies. There's no ladies here. Oh, here. This is love your neighbor as yourself. This is where it is. And you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Who's the neighbor? We don't know who the neighbor is. Look, it tells us just a few more verses down in the same chapter. The stranger, the ger who dwells among you, shall be to you as one born among you, one born in the land. And Ezra is the word that is there. And you shall love him as yourself. the stranger that we're supposed to love is the man that we're supposed to love is the ger. The stranger is the ger. I am Yahovah, your Elohim. Well, little pieces, you've got to build upon the pieces, and they all have to fit together, or it's not right. Look what he says, 6 years. Thou shalt sow thy land. Sow thy land and gather in its produce. We're in the wilderness at this time. We began counting years once we came into Canaan and began to take it for ourselves. Here is Leviticus. I think this was Leviticus. Yeah, Leviticus 25. And Yehovah spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai, saying, speak to Israel's seed, the Ezra man. I showed you several weeks ago several important places where you can see that Israel's seed, B'nai Israel, is the Ezra. Leviticus 23, the very end, the last 3 verses. It's in Leviticus 17 in multiple places. And there are other places that I mentioned when we went through this. Got to understand it, who Israel's seed is. When you come into the land, which I give you, that whose land is it going to be? It's going to be the men's land. Then the land shall keep a Sabbath to Yehovah. 6 years you shall sow your field, and 6 years you shall prune your vineyard and gather its fruits. But in the 7th year there shall be a Sabbath, a solemn rest for the land. Even the land gets a rest. A Sabbath to Yehovah. You shall neither sow your field nor prune your vineyard. What grows of its own according to your harvest you shall not reap, nor shall the grapes of your vine, untended vine, nor gather the grapes of your untended vine. For it is the year of rest for the land, and the Sabbath produce of the land shall be food for thee, for thy male and female servants, thy hired man, and the stranger who dwells with thee, for thy livestock and the beasts that are in the land, all its produce shall be for food. Look, he even cares about the animals who are in the land. Makes me want to think that we should plant something good in the 6th year so that when it grows of itself in the 7th year, it's something that is really going to be beneficial to us. I wonder if they did that. Well, so this is the Sabbath, the land, the Sabbath land. It says, but the 7th year thou shalt let it rest and lie fallow, that the poor of your people may eat. We get to eat, the poor of our people, they eat the corners of our land as it is. But here they get to eat the whole land. And what they leave, the beasts of the field may eat. In like manner you shall do with your vineyard and your olive grove. Now look what he says, 6 days you shall work, and on the 7th day thou shalt rest. Thy ox, thy donkey. So funny, he doesn't say sons and daughters. Look what he says. Thy ox, thy donkey, and the son of thy female servants, and the stranger may be refreshed. The son of your female servant? How come it doesn't say what it says everywhere else? Thy male servant and thy female servant. I mean, this is the 4th commandment. Remember the Sabbath to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do thy work. But on the 7th day is the Sabbath to Yehovah. So we have a Sabbath for ourselves. We have a Sabbath for our land. in it thou shalt do no work. Thou, nor thy son. This one doesn't even talk about sons and daughters. Nor thy son, nor thy daughter, nor thy male servant, nor thy female servant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger who is within the gates. I think it's interesting to see that Yehovah is repeating himself in these judgments that he's giving Moses to give to Israel's seed. Some of the very ones that he gave for the Ten Commandments. Yeah, son of a handmaid. Not even sure what that is. Son of an Amah. I mean, that would be your female servant is your Amah, your Oved, thy Oved or thy Amah. That's what it usually says. Thy Oved and thy Amah. Thy male and thy female servant. 13. And in all that I have said to y'all, here it is, y'all, one y'all among all of these, and in all that I have said to y'all, be circumspect, and make no mention of the name of other Elohims, nor let it be heard from your mouth. Nor let it be heard from your mouth. They put, make no mention. Think this is a way of misleading us. The word that they're using here is zakar. Here it is right here, zakar. It says, and in all that I have said to y'all, be circumspect. Circumspect is to guard the commandments. Here he's going to say, here. No, let me talk about Zakar first, because here we're talking about make no remembrance. Make no remembrance. Here's the same word. An altar of earth. This is right after we gave the Ten Commandments. We saw Moses went up to the mountain, and then he said, tell Israel to make an altar. This is what he's going to say. It says, an altar of earth you shall make to me, and you shall slaughter your olah and your shalamim, your flocks and oxen, in every place where I record my name. Record my name. We're recording our name by making an altar to Yehovah and making the olah and the shalamim offerings. He says, in every place where I record zakar, my name, I will come to you and I will bless you. By recording his name, making a place. We're building an altar. But the world, where did I get this? I have to wonder, making a, what is the word that I want to use? Making a place, here, let's do this. I know I have this somewhere in here. I'm sorry. The Washington Monument is making a remembrance of other Elohim. That's making a remembrance. This is a phallic symbol, the Washington Monument. Even the Lincoln Monument. How about busts that we observe of other Elohim. Is that what Yehovah wants us to do? Or does Yehovah want us to always concentrate on him being our only Elohim? I am Yehovah who brought thee out of the land of Egypt. Thou shalt have no other Elohim existing before my face. This is what making a remembrance. That's what these idols are all about. Talking about an altar of earth. That's what we're supposed to make. Here, it says 6:3. Hear Israel and observe. Shema is the word that we're using here. Look, Shema and Shamar. Here's the word that we're using here. Be circumspect. Shamar. Guard, protect, and make no remembrance of other Elohim, lawmakers and judges, nor let them be heard from thy mouth. You know, we see Elohim, God, because we read it as God. What do we think? Do we think about Moloch? Do we think about other, I don't even know, Elohim, that the Elohim worship? This is where the deep state is right now. They're worshiping Satan. We have to be circumspect, to guard and remember the name of Yehovah, not the names of other Elohim. Nor let it be heard from thy mouth. So it says, hear Israel, Shema, hear and obey Israel, and Shema. Shema, Israel, Shamar. To do it, that it may be well with thee, and that thou may multiply greatly, as Yehovah, Elohim of your fathers, has promised you. A land flowing with milk and honey. Here it is. Shema, Israel, Shamar. Hear and guard. You know, Israel, it says there shall be one law for the Ger, or for the Ezra, and the Ger who dwells with you. One law. However, the law doesn't apply the same way to an Ezra as it does with a Ger in some cases. We're going to see a case even today where it doesn't apply the same way. In fact, we're going to see it in the very next verse that we're going to go through here. Here's Shamar. It says, guard, action, guard. Concrete briar, like a briar would protect. A close watching of something for guarding or protecting. Shepherds constructed corrals of briars at night to protect the flock from predators. Guard is how it is often translated, guard. Oh, this is talking about the tassels, that you may not follow, that you may remember here. And you shall have tassels, that you may look upon them and remember all the commandments of Yehovah, and to do them, and that you may not follow the harlotry to which your own heart and your own eyes are inclined, and that you may remember to do all my commandments and be holy to your Elohim. Well, this is the context of the verse we just read. Hear Israel and observe. Talking about teaching it to your son and your grandson. It doesn't say granddaughter or your daughter and your granddaughter. No, we're teaching it to our sons. The commandments are given to men. Men follow Yahovah, or should. Their women follow their men. A daughter follows her father. A wife follows her man. A servant, female servant, follows her master. Not Yahovah. Oh, we've learned so many lies. See, this is by children of Israel, we think men and women are alike. You couldn't be further from the truth. I'm trying to set you free here. Here, look what it says now. 3 times. Thou shalt keep a feast to me in the year. Again, he's talking to the Ezra men. Thou. 3 times. Well, look what he says. So interesting. He's going to talk about the Feast of Unleavened Bread first. Remember, Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread is the first feast. It's how the Ezra becomes the thou, or how the ger becomes the thou. You're not the thou if you don't eat the Passover and get circumcised. Get circumcised and keep the Passover. Thou shalt keep the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Thou shalt eat unleavened bread 7 days, as I command thee. And at the time appointed in the Aviv month. The Aviv month, here it is. No, this is Kadosh. Aviv Kadosh. It is either month of the Aviv or, and I think this is probably better, the Aviv month. This is the. Doing this in the Aviv month. For in it thou came out of Egypt. Thou came out of Egypt. None shall appear before me empty. What is it that we're supposed to bring during the Feast of Unleavened Bread? It's the first fruits of the barley. The Aviv is what we're going to bring. Our first fruits. You know, I added a lamb or a goat. You know, I think I'm going to leave that out for right now because we're talking about what? We're talking about Passover. We're talking about the Feast of Unleavened Bread right now. Our first fruits is what we're going to bring during the Sunday that falls during the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Notice, it's not women who appear before Yahovah. It's men who appear before Yahovah. So when we had here, we're going to see that even more clear. So it's 3 times in years. Thou is men. It's all men. There are no lady thous. But it's going to be even more clear in verse 18. Let me finish. Actually, I could put this note even on 18 too. I think I will. Edit, cut. You know, this goes along, Wayne, with a discussion that we had earlier this week. You were talking about the Feast of Unleavened Bread and Passover. This is a really good verse, I think, for what you were looking for. And I thought about it when I read it. And the Feast of Harvest. So the first one was the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Now we're going to do the Feast of Harvest. What's the Feast of Harvest? It's Shavuot. And the first fruits of your labors, which you have sown in the field. That's the wheat harvest at Shavuot. The Feast of Ingathering at the end of the year is Sukkot, or the Feast of Tabernacles. They call it the Feast of Ingatherings here at the end of the year, when thou hast gathered in the fruit of thy labors from the field. Now, look what it says. Here we were just reading 3 times a year, thou shalt keep the feast to me. Thou. This is the Ezra men. But now in 18, look what it says. 3 times a year, all thy males shall appear before Yahovah thy Elohim. So it's making it even more clear who it is that we are talking about. The males are the, here's the word, where is it? Here it is, males. Zakor. Males, Yahovah brought 2 Zakor and 2 Nekabah of every kind of animal onto the ark. Talking about males, Zakor. All your males shall appear before Yahovah, your Elohim. Now, I have to wonder if, in this context, I should probably read the next verse too, because it's the same. It's following the same line. 3 times a year, all your males shall appear before Yahovah. Oh no! It says. Oh, this is interesting. It says the master, Yahovah. Oh yes, look at this. The master, Yahovah. Here it is. This is Ha Adonai, Yahovah. How many times in the Torah does Yahovah get translated as the Lord? 3,498 times. Practically every time. But here, and in one other verse, it actually says the master, the Adon, Yahovah. 3 times a year, all thy males shall appear before the master, Yahovah. Yahovah is the master of the thee. The Ezra men. Nobody else. The Ezra men are the master of everybody else. That's why they're their males. Their males. Who are we talking about? Probably you're talking about their sons and the Ger who dwells with them. Could it even be the male servants? The Aved? I wonder. I don't know about that for sure. Let's kind of keep that in mind as we read some of these things. So the Adon. This is the man. This is the Lord. I mean, it's Adon. It says Adon, the Adon, but it gets translated as the Lord. The Lord. This is the Lord. But it only happens 2 times in the whole of Scriptures, and it's talking about the Lord who? Yahovah. Well, here is a couple places where it talks about these things. This says 3 times a year. Oh, this is the one we're reading right now. I don't want to read that one again. Let's read the next one. It says 3 times a year, all thy males shall appear before the master, Yahovah. If we go to this verse, 34:23, he spells out here. Where is it? Oh, here it is, up here. And you shall observe the Feast of Weeks. Now he starts even for that. Feast of Unleavened Bread. You shall keep. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread, as I commanded thee. In the appointed time, in the month of the Aviv, for in the Aviv month you came out of Egypt. All that opened the womb are mine. All that opened the womb are mine. Again, we're talking about the Ezra men. And every male firstborn, no, I guess not. All that opened the womb are mine, and every male firstborn upon your livestock, whether ox or sheep. But the firstborn of the donkey, 6 days you shall work, and 7 days you shall. So now he's talking about the Feast of Weeks. And thou shalt observe the Feast of Weeks, the first fruits of the wheat harvest, and the Feast of Ingatherings at the end of the year. 3 times in the year, all your men, all thy men, shall appear before Ha-Adon, the Lord. I put it in green because they finally got it right. Yahovah Elohim of Israel. He is the Lord. Yahovah Elohim of Israel. He's the only Lord. There are no other lords for Israel's seed. Okay, going back. I don't want to draw this out too much. It's going to be too long. I'm going to go back further. 32. We're on 23. Oh, shoot, let's go this way. 23:17. We just did. Yeah, we did 17. That's where we're at right now. Okay. There's one time every 7 years at the appointed time in the year of release. Look what it says. I'm reading here on the right. And Moses commanded them, saying, at the end of every 7 years, at the appointed time in the year of release, at the Feast of Tabernacles, when all Israel comes before Yahovah, your Elohim, in the place that he chooses. You shall read this law before Israel in their hearing. Gather the people together, men and women and little ones, and the stranger who is within your gates, that they may hear, that they may learn to fear Yahovah your Elohim, and carefully observe all the words of this law, this Torah. I think it's interesting. It does not say the Oved, the male servant and the female servant. It says the women and the little ones. Interesting. So likely, at least to my thinking, if we're talking about all the males appearing before Yahovah to keep the Passover, it doesn't appear to me that it is the Oved, the male servants that are coming with the ger. We already know that the ger are going to be there, because the ger who gets circumcised and partakes in the Passover becomes an Ezra man. Look what he says. You shall not offer the blood of my slaughter. You know, they put sacrifice in there when you see those words. Strangers. When you see a word like stranger, foreigner, born in the... Look it up. Here it is, sacrifice. Look it up. Find out what sacrifice they're talking about. Here it is. Zak. They translated it sacrifice twice, and they used the wrong word on both of them. Because look what it says. You shall not offer the blood of my slaughter with leavened bread. Does it sound like we're going to be doing the Passover again? We know that we're going to be doing it in 9 more months. We're going to be doing it again for the second time. We're going to do it when we get into Canaan. We crossed the river Jordan. The first thing we did was circumcise our men and keep a Passover. Interesting. But so many people say, well, it's about a remembrance. You shall not offer the blood of my slaughter with leavened bread, nor shall, this is again 3 times a year. Oh, well, that was just while we were in the wilderness, don't you know? Oh, well, that was just while we were in Egypt. No, this is forever. 3 times a year, all your males shall appear before Jehovah. You shall not offer the blood of my slaughter with leavened bread, nor shall the fat of my, they put sacrifice, the word here is festival, the fat of my festival remain until morning. I'm surprised it doesn't say slaughter. I would expect it to say slaughter, letting it remain until morning. The flesh of my slaughter, or the fat of my slaughter remain until morning. Here, this is Exodus 12. Then they shall eat the flesh on the night, roasted in fire with unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it. Do not eat it raw, nor boiled in water, but roasted in fire. Its head, legs, and entrails, you shall let none of it remain until morning. Anything that does remain until morning, you shall burn with fire. Isn't that exactly what they're talking about? Now, 19. The first fruits of your land you shall bring to the house of Jehovah your Elohim. The first fruits of your land you shall bring to the house of Elohim. I think they're still talking about these feasts. We're bringing it at the Feast of Unleavened Bread, we're bringing it at the Feast of Shavuot, and we're bringing it at the Feast of Ingatherings. But look what it says. You shall bring to the house of Jehovah. We don't even have a house of Jehovah yet, but we will shortly. At the end of Exodus, we're going to have a tabernacle, beginning of Numbers. We're going to have a tabernacle. We can bring it there. We can bring our first fruits. We can bring the firstborn of our goats, the firstborn of our sheep. We can bring those. We don't have a lot to bring in as far as the land is concerned because we don't have a land yet. But look what it says. You shall not boil a young goat in its mother's milk. Where did that come from? We see it again in Exodus 34. The exact same verse, word for word, as this one. In Deuteronomy it says, thou shalt not eat anything that dies of itself, nor thou may give it to, look, remember we were talking about one law, but it applies differently to the ger and the ezra. Here's a case. Thou, the Ezra men, shall not eat anything that dies of itself. Thou shalt give it to the ger, who is within thy gate, that he may eat it. Or thou mayst sell it to a foreigner, a ben nakar. For thou art a holy people to Jehovah, thy Elohim. Thou shalt not boil a goat in its mother's milk. The rabbis have made it a law, an unofficial law, kind of like wearing a kippah. Well, the takanot, I guess, would be the informal law. The ma'asim, as I understand it, is a tradition that has been done for so long that it's kind of like a law. It says this has nothing to do with eating dairy products and meat on the same plate. This is what the rabbis are teaching us. There's a lot of misinformation out there on the web. Things not worth reading, much less worth repeating here. I think the tradition I think this tradition, eating a goat boiled in its mother's milk, is a pagan practice that Jehovah did not want his son to participate in. He even cares about the offspring of animals. Mother's milk is to be a tool of nourishment, not a means of torture and death. Yahovah even cares about animals' rest, food, and well-being. Yes, he does. Now, he's changing ideas here. He says, behold, I send an angel before thee. I send an angel before thee. This is the Ezra men. To keep thee in the way and to bring thee into the place which I have prepared. This word angel is this word here, melech. Or I'm sorry, shalach. Shalach. The sent one. Oh, hold it. What do you have here? Why do I have shalach? And then I have messenger, melech. This is what I expected to see, the melech, the angel. Well, the melech is a shalach. I think, in a sense, Moses is the current melech, the current messenger. He's got the rod of Elohim in his hand, the Melchizedek. Masculine noun meaning messenger. The term denotes one who is sent on business or diplomacy by another. Jacob sent messengers to go ahead of his brother Esau. I always think of the messenger that Abraham sent for Rebekah. He sent Eliezer as his shalach, his sent one, his messenger, and he spoke for Abraham. Yehovah thy Elohim will raise up a prophet like me. This is Moses saying this. Who's he going to raise up? He's going to raise up Joshua. Joshua is going to be the one who's going to go up to the mountain with him for the 40 days and 40 nights. Remember Joshua and Hor, wasn't it? Who helped when the Amalekites attacked to help Moses hold the rod of Elohim over his head. I think Joshua is going to inherit the rod of Elohim. It says, Yehovah thy Elohim will raise up, where this is in Deuteronomy, Yehovah thy Elohim will raise up a prophet like me from thy midst, from thy brethren. Him thou shalt hear according to all thou desired of Yehovah thy Elohim in Horeb in the day of the assembly, when thou said, let me not hear again the voice of Yehovah my Elohim, nor let him see this great fire among any fire anymore, lest I die. This is what they were saying. They don't want to see him anymore. We'll do whatever you say. Moses was their messenger, their sent one. So is Joshua. I put the Shalach operates in the name of the one who sent him. Remember, it was the Shalach, Joshua, who spoke to the sun and said, sun, stand still until our enemies are destroyed. It stood still like 23 and a half hours. Huge amount. Maybe it's even in the next verse. Let me just see here. I said, beware of him and obey his voice. Do not provoke him. He will not pardon y'all's transgressions, for my name is in him. His name is in him. You know, I have to go back. This is, where did I get that shalak? Where did that shalak come from? If we go to here is, that's Melech. Is the shalak being used somewhere in here? Oh, here it is right here. Yeah, sent. I will shalak my Melech. I will raise up thee. Yeah, all right. Now it makes more sense. Let's go back to our verse. I will send. Yeah, I will shalak a Melech before thee. I will send a messenger. I will send a messenger before thee. Okay, see, now it makes more sense, doesn't it? The messenger is going to speak the words of Yahovah. In fact, Moses, many times, as the shalak, the messenger of Yahovah, simply said, he did some things when we were getting the plagues that fell on Egypt. Sometimes he just simply did them himself, and Yahovah didn't tell him to do it. He just simply did it. What he says, Yahovah does, and what Yahovah says, he does. That's what the shalak is. He's that close to the Father. Joshua is going to take the place. So, I will send an angel. That makes more sense. Beware of him and obey his voice. Do not provoke him, for he will not pardon thy transgressions. No, y'all's transgressions. For my name is in him. He speaks for me. Yeah, here it is. Then Joshua spoke for Yahovah in the day of Yahovah delivered up the Amorites before Israel's seed. And he said in the sight of Israel, sun, stand still over Gibeon, and the moon and the valley of Avijan. So the sun stood still and the moon stopped till the people had revenge upon their enemies. Is this not written in the book of Yashar? Yeah, it is. So the sun stood still in the midst of heavens and did not hasten to go down for about a whole day. Here this says, verse 21 is the capital. Oh, yeah, look at this. They put capital H and capital H here. Why? Beware of him. I will send an angel before you. They want you to believe that the him is this guy they call Yeshua. It's not. It's in the capital letters because people want to make it all about Yeshua and assume, because of the doctrines and traditions of man, that Yeshua is the creator, because they think that the creator can forgive sins. But as we saw in verse 20 and this one, he is the sent one with the same authority as Yahovah. Yes, that's exactly right. 22. If you obey his voice and do all that I speak, then I will be an enemy to your enemies and an adversary to your adversaries. Here it is again. For my angel, my Melech, will go before thee and bring thee into the Amorites and the Hittites and the Perizzites and the Canaanites and the Hivites and the Jebusites, and I will cut them off. Joshua is going to be that sent one that is going to do that. Thou shalt not bow down to their Elohim, nor serve them, nor do according to their works. This is kind of goes along with the first commandment. Thou shalt have no other Elohim existing before my face. Thou shalt not bow down to their Elohim, nor serve them, nor do according to their works. But thou shalt utterly overthrow them and completely break down their sacred pillars. There it is, the sacred pillars. The Washington Monument. This is exactly what I was talking about. We're going to break down their sacred pillars. I knew it was in here somewhere. So, Elohim, they're rulers and judges. Don't think sun gods and all those kinds of things. We're talking about Elohim, lawmakers and judges. Don't bow down to their Elohim, nor serve them, nor do according to their works, but overthrow them completely, break down their sacred pillars. I put the sacred pillars, the word they're using here as matzeba. It's a column. Something station that is a column, memorial stone, an idol. Yeah, and it's an idol. I can think of a golden calf that's an idol that a lot of people follow instead of Yahovah. A feminine noun meaning something set upright. The word most often refers to a standing, unhewn block of stone utilized for religious and memorial purposes. Yeah, that's kind of like the Washington Memorial, is what we were talking about. There's one in Rome. There's one in England. They're all over the world. Almost done. 25. So you shall serve Yahovah. So y'all shall serve Yahovah, your Elohim. Yahovah is only the Elohim to the your, to the thee. He's not the Elohim to anybody else. I guess you could argue, no, I don't even say that. The Ger, I was going to say maybe the Ger. He's the Elohim of the Ger. No, he's not. Because it's the Ger who dwells with them. It's their Ger. So no, he's only the Elohim to the Ezra men. See, if we try to make it about believing in Jesus and that makes you Israel, you have got such a perverted line of thinking, you'll never come to the truth. Close your New Testament. Start reading what Torah has to say. It's going to be a light to your path. Learn the old ways and follow them. It says, so y'all shall serve Yahovah Elohim. So serve Yahovah, your Elohim. There it is, your Elohim. Actually, I guess that's not it. You shall serve your Elohim. And he shall bless thy bread, thy water. I will take sickness away from the midst of thee. Hear that? We're not even going to have sickness. He's going to bless our bread, bless our water. Right now, our bread, our water, is being perverted to kill us. He's going to bless our bread, bless our water. Take sickness away from us. We're having sickness put into us, for heaven's sakes, by the Elohim of the earth. You know, I had a thing about making a covenant with them. Where was that? Did I use my home note? I want to make sure I got everything. No, I don't see it right offhand. We're going to talk about covenants. The bloodless covenants. I guess we're going to get to it. You shall not bow down to their Elohim. No, I read that. I'm sorry. Bless your food, water. No one shall suffer miscarriage or be barren in your land, and I will fulfill the number of your days. Those shots, they're making us sterile. I will send my fear before thee, and I will cause confusion among all the people to whom thou come, and will make all thy enemies turn their backs to thee. I will send hornets up before you, which shall drive out the Hivites, the Canaanites, the Hittite before you. I will not drive them out from before thee in 1 year, lest the land become desolate and the beasts of the field become too numerous for thee. He's going to do it slowly so that we can handle the transition. Little by little, I will drive them out from before thee until thou hast increased and thou inherit the land. Who's going to get the land? It's the men who are going to get the land. Only men own land. Little by little, I did that. And I will set thy bounds from the Red Sea to the Sea of Phoenicia, and from the desert to the river. For I will deliver the inhabitants of the land into thy hand, Yahweh's hand, and thou shalt drive them out before thee. Oh, here it is. Look what he says. You shall make no covenant with them. Who's them? The inhabitants of the land, the Elohim of the land. You shall make no covenant with them, nor with their Elohim. So the inhabitants are with their Elohim, their lawmakers and judges. Now, Yahuwah is bringing his son back to where he began. Thou shalt have no other Elohim existing before my face. He says no covenants. This is the verse 23:32. Lo is the negation. Thou shalt make with them, with their Elohim, with them and with their Elohim covenants. But the lo says thou shalt not make with them their Elohim covenants. What's a covenant? A covenant is an agreement to do something. Here, a covenant is instituted through slaughter of a choice fatted animal, which is cut into two, and the parties of the covenant pass through the pieces. This is what happened in Genesis 17 with Abraham. If one party fails to meet the agreement of the covenant, then the other may do the same to them. Nowadays, the world uses bloodless covenants. They're called contracts. They're called licenses. They're called permits. You get a marriage license, a driver's license. It's the covenants that you bind yourself to that is going to result in your destruction. I found out the hard way about a marriage covenant. I had my kids stolen from me, and my wife taken from me. Well, I learned. Now I won't be involved in those kinds of things anymore. I don't even have a driver's license, for heaven's sake. You know what happens when I get pulled over? They say, "Have a nice day, Mr. DDA." You gotta know how to handle them. They can't give you a ticket if you don't have a license. In fact, I remember an attorney talking about me to the judge, saying, "Your Honor, we have no authority over this man. He doesn't even have a driver's license." And I'm just sitting there giggling, laughing to myself. We have no authority over this man. That's where they get the authority, is from the covenants, the bloodless covenants. Nowadays, the world uses bloodless covenants called contracts, licenses, permits. But it always will be a snare for us if we enter into those covenants. Don't do it. They shall not dwell in thy land. They, who's they? The inhabitants of the land. The Elohim. They shall not dwell in thy land, lest they make thou sin against me. For if thou serve their Elohim, their lawmakers and judges, do you see why I want you to change the way you read? Lawmakers and judges. Don't use that word, gods. It's gonna foul your thinking up. For if thou serve their Elohim, it will surely be a snare to thee. Here's my notes. Nowadays, the world uses bloodless covenants. This is what we were just reading. The really sad thing about the covenants that we make with the world is that we try to fulfill our obligation, but the deep state, the Elohim of the earth, do not do the same. We're seeing that over and over and over again. What's good for us is not good for them, and vice versa. But Yehovah, on the other hand, is faithful to do what he says. What he says he's going to do. Take heed to yourself, lest you make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land. This is Exodus 34. With the covenants of the land where you are going, lest it be a snare in your midst. It's almost the same verbiage. Here it says, the fear of man, this is Adam, the one-born man born in the flesh, that's the Adam. The fear of Adam brings a snare, but he who trusts in Yehovah will be exalted. Many seek a ruler's favor, but justice for a man, justice for man, I would even say a man, comes from Yehovah. Ish and Ish. Remember, the Ezra men are Ish. Ish. Ezra's are second-born men. Remember that. You'll see that over and over again. Understand the difference between an Adam and an Ish. All right, well, we're going to stop here. I probably went a little bit long. I'm sorry about that. I hate to stop in the middle of a chapter. Next week's probably going to be a lot shorter. Hey, thank you for joining me, and we will see you next time. Have a great day.